Hey there, good evening. It's the FOX6 Sports Blitz, a Sunday night. Where better to talk about sports than this particular program? We're bracket advancing even without one of our key players. Brandon Cruz, not with us this week, obviously. Back again next Sunday night, so we'll keep you going here. Lily's out, Tim Van Vorn, appreciate you joining in. And here's what we have planned on the starting lineup. The NCAA tournament, neither sweet nor elite for Marquette and Wisconsin. The Madison Milwaukee is a hit, however. And speaking of hits, State is great for local high school teams in Divisions 1, 2, and 3. We're not all about basketball. The Brewers warming up in the bullpen with baseball right around the corner, and we'll knock them down with our latest high school hotshot.
Watching them grow together from the time we got together in June to now may have been the most fun, enjoyable year in my career. We were highly doubted early. We weren't even supposed to be in this tournament. Supposed to be finishing 12th in the Big Ten, maybe. And this group just bought in.
One of the more enjoyable Badger seasons to watch, too. I think people who have seen this team for years would say that was definitely true. The offensive evolution, the big quality wins, some resiliency at times this season. Lily's out. And then it all crushes as it comes to an end in the first round or second round of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, that was a heartbreaking loss, considering the fact that had they had maybe 10 more seconds, a minute left on the clock, we would be talking about a different outcome, right? But you talk about the Badgers coming out slow in the first half. They couldn't slow down BYU, couldn't get their own shots to fall, and they tried to make a comeback late, and they were almost close to succeeding by doing so, thanks to that guy, John Tonje, who had 37 points. But BYU, I mean, this was a tough draw as a 6 seed. I mean, they had 2 losses to Houston, the number 1 seed in the tournament, and this is a tough team to play. And so the Badgers tried their best. They couldn't hit their free throws, and that also played a part of it. But it just was tough going offensively for Wisconsin until the clock kind of ran out late. But you talk about a great season for Wisconsin. I think this was a team that believed they could make their first Sweet 16 since 2017 and came just seconds away from potentially making that happen.
And believe those things partly because they had John Tonje, who's second-team All-American, terrific player. Yes, he misses the final shot against BYU, but they never would have been anywhere close without the second half that he had. John Blackwell, I think, showed a lot of promise for the future as well. But let's be honest, in this game, without that crazy groin call, they're not even making a run at the end. The Badgers played poorly in what turns out to be their last game of the year. And it's a look in the mirror situation for Greg Gard. It's hard to get past this opening weekend for the Badgers coach, despite the fact that after last year's opening weekend, you wondered whether Greg Gard was even coming back, period.
Yeah, and that's the argument, right? You can talk about, oh, it was a successful season, but you're kind of, ranked on if you can get your team's wins in the NCAA tournament, and the Badgers just got one this season. And so Greg Gard has not gotten his team past the first weekend in a long time. And so we'll see if this team can regroup. But you talk about Greg Gard, what he's been able to do with the team this season. You lose your top 3 scorers from last season. You bring in John Tonje, who had remarkable success. But again, at the end of the day, this is a Badgers program that wants to make a run in March, and they haven't been able to do that. But credit Greg Gard for what he was able to build with the program this year.
Never led in this game against BYU. It's frustrating when you don't play well in what turns out to be your last game of the year, despite the frenetic effort at the end to get back into it. Before we finish on the Badgers, it's so much NIL and payment delivery now. John Tonje was not expected to be much of an impact player at all when he came to Madison. He turned out to be a monstrous impact player. How important is roster construction no matter who the coach is, Lily?
I think it's important. We can talk about roster construction for Marquette, right? The fact that they don't rely on transfers and the fact that they were a first-round exit in the tournament. The Badgers, of course, going to the portal and succeeding there. I think that's going to be something that Greg Gard does again in the offseason. It's going out there and trying to find the hidden gem in the rough, per se, and trying to find your next John Tonje, a guy that can lead your program and be that number 1 guy for your team. So, again, just with how the portal has changed the landscape of college basketball, I think that's where the Badgers will need to dip again.
Marquette gets to the NCAA tournament, didn't play well really the last 2 months of the season, month and a half of the season, and that bore itself out against New Mexico.
Yeah, you can kind of talk about the fact that they were very inconsistent down the stretch, like you mentioned, and that was kind of the encapsulation of why they lost to New Mexico. They had a lot of times during the game where they didn't score, and you can't do that in the tournament. They were inconsistent. They couldn't knock down their shots, and at the end of the day, they lost in the first round. And I know that was a really crushing defeat for guys like Stevie Mitchell, David Joplin, Cam Jones, the seniors, the guardians on the team per se, the guys who, came in with Shaka Smart to really build a program. And it just was a tough out for these guys, but they were just inconsistent down the stretch, and that really showed their flaws in their loss.
They had a ton of wins and a ton of minutes early in the year, though, largely because of these guys. So you can't dismiss that, and I think maybe that effort early made them a little tired later.
Yeah, and you had to rely on those guys to really get you buckets. And you talk about the importance of bench play, and that didn't really kind of come to fruition. So you're really relying on heavy minutes from your big name players, and the fact that these guys might have gotten tired legs, right? That certainly doesn't help. Especially playing in March. And so a tough end for Marquette as well. I know this was a team that wanted to kind of replicate, taking a step every single season in the tournament under Shaka Smart the last couple of years.
Yeah, obviously, and they've won an awful lot of games. These guys have won an awful lot of games. What about the transfer idea? I'm not one to say Shaka Smart said this so they can never do transfer portals or whatever it might be. So I would say throw that out the window. But what do you do if you're Marquette? You've built continuity. You've built build from within. But you see what's going on the landscape of college basketball.
Right. The landscape is shifting, and it reminds me of the Packers draft and develop philosophy, right? You're kind of talking about homegrown talent, guys you bring in, and you're not going to the portal. And it might have, worked for other teams. It was successful for the most part this season for Marquette, but at the end of the day, they didn't have enough offensive firepower to get things done. So next season, what does this roster look like for Marquette? You have Chase Ross, Ben Gold, Trey Norman, Royce Parham coming back for Marquette, but do you add those pieces from the portal? I think Shaka Smart probably should do that to add more to their program.
An experienced big man this year would have made a big difference. They have big men that they're hoping for down the road, but that would have made a big difference on this year's team. There were games here in Milwaukee this weekend. The games on Sunday weren't very good, but the experience was good. You were part of it. I was part of it. What'd you think?
It was nice. I mean, it would have been better had Wisconsin been playing at Fiserv Forum. I think Badgers fans would have loved that, but it just was nice to have the city host a lot of talented teams trying to, punch their ticket into the Sweet 16. And you see a Pewaukee grad, Milan Momcilovic, his family and friends were in town to watch him play. So it was nice to get some, local flair in town and just have some college basketball when Wisconsin and Marquette were far away from Wisconsin. Yeah. What about you, Tim? What do you think?
Well, nice buzz downtown. A lot of you got fan bases here. Kentucky, obviously, Illinois, Iowa State, North Carolina. Those teams are going to bring a lot of people. Mississippi didn't maybe have as many people. They were as loud as anybody here, and that's a program people in town here probably don't know that much about. I think it's always educational this time of year to read about the teams and learn about the teams you don't know that much about, and then see these guys up close and personal.
And tell fans, hey, you'll enjoy Milwaukee, so maybe, Fiserv can host in a couple years and you guys can come back and enjoy it more.
Yeah, Marquette organizes it and runs it and has done a great job year in and year I don't want to say year in and year out, tournament in and tournament out when they've had this situation, and there's no reason the NCAA wouldn't be coming back because it was another successful run for sure. All right, let's talk successful runs all the way to Madison and then at Madison. We had a lot of success for local teams, Lily. Boys State High School this week, and we want to take a look at some of these teams. And in Division I, II, and III, local champions by a combined 8 points in those 3 games. Nail biters to the end.
Yeah, and they were really good finishes too. And props to every single team that made state from our area. But let's start in Division I. Wisconsin Lutheran getting the win. They move up from Division II to Division I. They were champs last year in D2. Get the job done in the last couple seconds there in Division I to bring home a state title. And Tim, you talk about grit. These Vikings had grit.
Yeah, they had grit. They have genes.
Yeah.
They got a lot of genes, a lot of basketball genes on that team. No question about it, and a lot of celebrating. Just look at the joy. This is outstanding stuff. Even though this has been a successful program under Ryan Walls, he's done a great job over there. All right, Division II, you had a couple of teams who hadn't been in this Madison experience for a long, long time, Lily. Racine Park, Wauwatosa West.
Yeah, this was a game that, I'm kind of happy went into overtime because Racine Park hadn't been to state in 65 years. Tosa West, their first trip ever to state, and they capitalized. Game goes into overtime. And, Tosa West gets it done. They bring home their first gold ball in program history. So congrats to those guys, the Trojans, for playing tough. I mean, this was a really good basketball game, some high-level basketball played. And you talk about guys like Jake Hansen there holding the trophy, making those clutch plays like steals.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at the fans. I mean, it's just a neat communal experience. Division III, Milwaukee Academy of Science has been a good program, but gets over the top this year.
Oh, yeah. This is a team that's been so close every single year. They finally get over the hump. Milwaukee Academy assigns beating Freedom by 3 combined points. So congratulations to the Novas and Coach Keys. I know this is a program that really wanted that gold ball. You talk about the excitement there and the way they got it done. Phenomenal.
Phenomenal. How about Mickey Leach, our sports photographer,
yes.
too?
Props to Mickey.
Good stuff there
Yes.
in Madison last night. He's at you're with him Friday night at the NCAA. I'm with him today at the NCAA. He squeezes in a trip to Madison, gets this kind of stuff, which is awesome to see
great.
there. Yeah, he's great, and this is great. Again, it's such a neat moment. It sometimes gets a little lost when we have the college teams in from our area, but to see this excitement, jubilation, and really hard work recognized. I mean, it doesn't happen by accident. It's not a fluke.
Not at all, not at all. And, a lot of teams put in a lot of hard work as well. Sheboygan Lutheran runners-up in Division 5. So props to all the teams. Props to Mickey Leach, our phenomenal photographer, for getting all that video. And just love that we wrap up the high school basketball season that way.
And spring sports are coming
There we
next.
go.
Yeah. Get your rescheduling and your logistics and umpires and all that stuff. Cancellations. That's what happens with spring sports in Wisconsin. All right, we'll go on a little more basketball. Let's talk about the Bucks. Up and down for the week, but more up than I think you'd expect. 2-1 so far on their West Coast road trip. Last night, Giannis Antetokounmpo, big second half. Bucks over the Kings. They're still the 5th seed, the Bucks are, in the East. An important stretch of games coming up. They have to wrap up this road trip before they get back to Milwaukee. And the Wisconsin Badger women's hockey team bringing the national title back to Madison. This never gets old, even though it's a frequent occurrence. Ohio State, the opposition, again this year. Kirsten Sims, the equalizer with 18 seconds left in regulation. Then Sims for the win in overtime. She and the Badgers with the 8th national championship in program history. It's an overtime winner. And speaking of Badgers hockey, we're coming back with Coach Mark Johnson in tonight's Say What, so stick around.
Another game Friday.
You play like an old man.
We got another game Saturday.
That's a little bit of a trick question.
We got another game Sunday.
Being bit to death by a duck.
We got another game Monday.
The guy's baking a pizza back there.
It don't stop, right?
Our job is to bring in that trophy fish tomorrow. Get it in the boat. Because if it's not in the boat, we're not going to eat it, right? It's got to get in the boat.
Well, how fortuitous. There's Mark Johnson, the Wisconsin women's hockey coach, and he talks about getting the fish in the boat. And the Badgers win their 8th national championship. So he knew what he was talking about.
He's kind of right, you know.
Walleye in the boat, and they're good to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Success.
Another team kind of hoping to replicate maybe what the Wisconsin women have done late in the season. That's the Milwaukee Brewers. And guess what, Tim? We're talking about Brewers baseball.
This week.
Yeah.
The games start this week, start to count this week. Freddie Peralta is going to be the man out there to take the start and get the season going. And I think he's a key player this year. You can talk about the offensive attack of this team. Freddie Peralta's been up and down the last couple of seasons. He's going to give you innings. He's going to get starts. You need success with Freddie Peralta on the mound if you're going to be a legitimate top of division team.
Absolutely, and he's going to go up against Carlos Rodon, who is stepping in for Garrett Cole, the Yankees ace, who's undergoing Tommy John surgery, and Peralta getting the win for the Brewers last year on opening day, playing the Mets. This year they play the Yankees, so we'll see if they have success against another New York team. And, Tim, we're talking about starting pitching, and the issue for the Brewers last season was they had 17 different arms that pitched for the Brewers. And you're talking about a rotation that needs all their guys healthy. Tobias Myers, a projected starter, goes down, has an oblique strain.
But I had never heard of Tobias Myers before last year.
Very
so,
true.
I mean, he's one of those 17 guys, and then he has a terrific season. So this is what the Brewers do. They collect guys, they put them in their pitching lab, and then they hope some of them turn out. Certainly Tobias Myers is one of those. He is starting the season on the injured list, and that is a setback because he's a guy who can take the ball and kind of got that bulldog mentality. I think he really stepped forward last season. He had really struggled in the minor leagues and in his career, and suddenly in Milwaukee, he puts it all together. You don't want to go through 17 guys, though, continuing to try to catch lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, and he was consistent for the Brewers, hopefully taking aim at a comeback in April. We'll see when he does come back. But a guy who doesn't really need a comeback, that's Jackson Chourio, because he's been on fire in the spring. He was on fire last year. He's 21 years old now, Tim, and just hitting really well in the spring and got his first home run in the spring today, and then some split squad action. But what can Brewers fans expect to see out of Action Jackson?
You say he's 21 already, huh? Yeah, 21, really getting up there. You should expect the world. Why wouldn't you expect that or hope for that if you're a Brewers fan? He was so good last year, particularly over the second half of the season. He's picked up where he left off this year in the spring. Of course, spring doesn't matter, but it shows that he's serious. He's come back. He's driven. He's in shape. He could be one of the best players in Major League Baseball. He certainly has that skill set, seems to have that attitude. Brewers would be a much better team if he does what they think he could do.
Yeah, and another guy that really brings power to the plate is Christian Yelich. How important do you think it was to see him hit the way he was able to hit in the spring, considering he's coming off back surgery?
It's reassuring because he missed the second half of last season and missed the playoffs, and they would have been a different team with Christian Yelich. They will be this year if he can build off his spring performance.
Yeah, had a really nice spring as well. And then we're talking about, Christian Yelich, he can play in the outfield, but what about the infield? There were some questions going into the offseason. Shortstop, one of those questions because Willy Adames has departed Milwaukee, and it seems like Joey Ortiz might be the go-to guys at shortstop.
Yeah, Brewers were right not to sign Willy Adames at that kind of money, but you have to acknowledge you're losing a lot of production at that position offensively. So Joey Ortiz, who was good at third last year, gets the opportunity. Bryce Terang could probably play there, but it will be Ortiz's job at the start of the season. That was a big part of the Brewers' success last season. Yeah, we'll see how well they play again opening day Thursday against the Yankees in New York. All right, a month ahead of the NFL draft, the Packers made another move, signing former Chiefs wideout Mecole Hardman to a one-year deal. The 7-year vet brings speed and experience to the receiving room, along with some special teams acumen as a kick and punt returner. We'll see what happens there as well, and we'll be right back with our high school shot. Welcome back. Well, tonight we'll take you to the lanes with one special senior. His school started a team 3 years ago, and his group of friends kept a tradition going. And now their success will forever be etched in the school trophy case. Here's this week's Fox 6 High School Hot Shot.
Fires it into the pocket, and he has been great.
Hi, my name is Ryan Jean. I am a senior at Brown Deer High School, and I am on the bowling team.
6 seniors on the Brown Deer squad. All
This has kind of been like the group from growing up from middle school, and we always been close, and I feel like the bowling team really got us closer. When they said a bowling team, I was all for it, but then I didn't really think the team was going to be made, because I know there's a lot of people in our school that didn't bowl. It was just us 6. Usually a team is a team thing, but with this team, I felt like it was more like a family, because it's like we're all comfortable with each other. We all had the same mindset. We all connected. We wanted it. We just all did it, and everyone plays a part on this team. We had Joe Johnson, Adrian Webster, Wyatt Walker, Ryan Jean, Alvin Williams, Zach Tauher. Usually people think, oh, they probably had lessons growing up. They probably been taught from coaches and stuff, but then we all were self-taught. I was like, man, I can't believe it. We actually won. These guys since 7th grade, middle school, class of 2025, state champs. It feels good to leave with something so big.
Has been on fire, and he goes 4 for 4.
My body was numb. All I felt was my heart beating. I was just looking at the lanes. It's total pinfall. Wyatt in the 9th frame, he picked up the spare. We just needed at least a mark or anything for Auburn.
How about a strike? And how about a championship for the Brown Deer?
As soon as he threw the ball, I looked at it. I just started screaming go! I'm like, it's good. And then he hit the strike, and that's when I kind of felt like we had it. This group will forever hold a piece of my heart and in my life, where it's just I never forget about them. If I ever want to do something, go bowl, this would be the group I call. Hey, you guys want to go bowl? Let's do it again for the old times. Hi, my name is Ryan Jean, a senior at Brown Deer High School. We're the state champion bowling team.
And we're this week's Fox 6 High School Hot Shot.
Looks like such a fun group, and Ryan hopes that more kids will join the Falcons bowling team to help keep the tradition alive, and he knows these future bowlers will certainly enjoy their journeys. We'll be right back.
Play ball! Opening day now just days away for the Brewers. They're opening up the regular season this week against the Yankees on Thursday. As the Brewers get going, the Bucs still going. They're on their West Coast trip. Then they face Mike Budenholzer and the Suns tomorrow night. And eventually we'll get back here to Milwaukee before the week is out.
Yeah, and then the Admirals also on the ice. We're going to take on the Moose and the Henderson Silver Knights in a 2-game set on the road. And of course, they've also clinched a playoff spot. So congrats to the Ads.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that. They get in because somebody else loses. We could be talking Calder Cup playoffs with a legitimate contender here this season, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And they kind of start around the same time the Bucs start their playoff run. So we're going to have a pretty busy April coming up, Tim.
Something called the NFL Draft.
That's coming up, too.
No doubt. Brandon Cruz is coming back next Sunday night. Until then, we'll wish you a great week. Thanks for tuning in today.